I welcome you all for this lecture of module 2. In this session we will study about height gauge and micrometer, the construction of height gauge and various applications of height gauge, and what are the different types of height gauge. Those things we will study. Similarly, in the micrometer we will study a little bit about history of micrometer, and then we will move to the construction and various uses of micrometer, and then we will study the variants of micrometer. Now, let us start our discussion with height gauge. So, this photograph shows a vernier type height gauge. I will just explain the different parts of the vernier height gauge. This is the main scale, this is the column of the vernier height gauge, and on the column we have main scale. One side we have metric scale, and on the other side we have English scale. Now, you can see here we have some arrangement for lifting the scale, for sliding the scale up and down. The details of this portion is shown in this figure. We can see the screw and we can see the nut. By rotating the nut, the main scale can be moved up and down. This is needed for making the zero adjustment. And then coming to the vernier part, we have one side metric vernier and on the other side English vernier. We have a screw for clamping the measuring head to the beam, and similarly there is a screw for moving the measuring jaw up and down. I can see here carbide tipped scriber is fixed to the measuring jaw, and there is a clamp for fixing the carbide tipped jaw to the measuring jaw. So, by rotating this screw we can clamp the scriber to the measuring jaw. This is the base of the vernier scale, vernier height gauge, and the bottom view of the vernier height gauge you can see. So, this is the ground finished surface. At the center it is relieved, and then this portion is the bottom of the beam, and a screw, by means of screw it is fixed to the base. And here you can see the clamp which is used to fix the scriber. This is the carbide tipped scriber. This scriber can be fixed to the measuring jaw with the help of this clamp. Now, we can see the close view of vernier height gauge. We can see the vernier and a screw for fixing the measuring jaw to the beam, and then there is a screw. We can initially we have to screw this, and then we have to operate this screw for finer adjustment of the vernier. And then we can see the scriber has been removed, clamp has been removed, and now we are viewing the top surface of the measuring jaw. Now, it is very essential that the top surface and bottom surface of the measuring jaws should be parallel, and these two surfaces, top and bottom surfaces of the measuring jaw should be parallel to the datum surface within 10 microns. So, that we can check with the help of a dial indicator. Now, we can see the dial indicator is fixed to the column of magnetic stand, and the spindle is in contact with the top surface of the measuring jaw. Now, we have to make zero adjustment when it just touches the top surface of the measuring jaw. Now, slowly we have to move this dial indicator towards the vernier height gauge, towards the beam of the vernier height gauge, and then we should note down what is the reading. So, this reading should be less than 10 microns. Now, checking for 0 error in the vernier height gauge. Now, we can observe here the main scale 0 line is here and this is the 0 line of the vernier. Now, they are not coinciding, even though the scriber is in contact with the datum surface, the scale is showing some reading. So, this we should adjust by lifting the main scale, as I have already discussed. Now, we can see here we have lifted, we have made some adjustments in the height of the main scale, and now there is no 0 error. Now, let me explain the vernier height gauge. This shows the vernier height gauge. This is the base of the vernier height gauge, and this is the main scale vertical bar. This is vertical bar, and you can see the main scale. The resolution of this main scale is 1 millimeter. Now, we can see the range of this instrument, it is 0 to 300 millimeter, and this portion is the measuring head, and we have the vernier scale here, and now this is the scriber attached to the measuring head, and you can see the carbide tip here, and this can be used for scribing lines on the workpieces, and this can also be used for measuring height of the workpieces. Now, I will explain how to use this for measurement of height of a workpiece. I am taking a workpiece here, and we should initially check approximately what is the height of the workpiece using a steel rule, and then we have to adjust the gap between the datum and the bottom surface of the scriber, and then we have to lock the measuring head using this screw, and then this is the finer adjustment screw. I am just operating the screw so that the scriber just moves down and it just touches the workpiece. So, the feel of the operator is very important here. We should not apply the over pressure here. If over pressure is applied, what happens is this base will move up as shown on the blackboard. Now, I am operating this. So, it is just touching the workpiece. Now, I will read the scale. Now, this is the 0 reference. Now, it is 40 millimeter on the main scale, and now we have to see what is the coinciding division. 15th division is coinciding with the line graduation on the main scale. That means 15 into 0.02 is 0.3. So, to the main scale reading value, that is 40 millimeter, we have to add the reading of the vernier, that is 0.3. So, the height of this workpiece is 40.3 millimeter. Now, we can see here setting of height gauge using slip gauge. So, initially we have used a slip gauge here, and we have used a lever type dial indicator, and any required height can be set using this arrangement. So, we can use the slip gauge and say this is 40 millimeter. So, now the we have to adjust, we have to move the measuring jaws so that this reads 0. So, in that case we have set the height gauge to 40 millimeter diameter, and then we can use this setting for the comparison purpose to check the height of other workpieces. In that in this case we are using the vernier height gauge as a comparator, and then we have digital height gauge. You can see the base of the digital height gauge, and then beam of the digital height gauge. Now, here instead of vernier we have a digital readout. We have hold option for holding the data point, and then we can fix the tolerance values. Okay. So we can quickly take the readings because of the digital display. Also there is a provision for transferring the data to a computer via RS-232C for data transmission, and this will be useful for statistical quality control. Now there are some advanced digital height gauges. A photograph of advanced digital height gauge is shown here. This is the base of the height gauge, and this is the column or beam of the height gauge, and then we have a wheel for height adjustment. When we rotate this, depending upon the direction in which we rotate, the probes will move up and down. Now you can see the measuring probes here. We have arrangement for fixing multiple probes. One more probe we can fix here. So both the probes we can use together. Now this is the display unit for displaying the data. Now what are the various features of this or such a advanced digital height gauge? We can see here perpendicularity measurement. This instrument can be used for measuring the perpendicularity. I will just write some simple sketches. Say we have some workpiece like this. So we can fix a probe here, and we have to move the probe towards the workpiece, and we have to just touch the workpiece, and then we have to move the probe up, and again we have to just touch the workpiece. Then if there is any difference, that gives the perpendicularity measurement. Similarly, we can use this for diameter measurement. Say we have a workpiece with a hole like this. So this is the workpiece with a hole. Now what we can do, we can move the probe and we can make a contact here, first contact, second contact somewhere here, and third contact. Then these three data are supplied to the microprocessor attached to the instrument, which will calculate the diameter of the hole, and it also calculates coordinates of the center point. And then circle pitch measurement. Say we have some 2-3 holes like this. This is first hole, this is second hole, and then say we have third hole. So now the diameter of all the 3 holes we can measure, and now say we want pitch, circle pitch measure. That means what is the this is the center of first circle, and this is the center of second circle, and this is the center of third circle. What is the pitch? What is the distance between the centers of different circles? So that can be calculated. The microprocessor will calculate the data and it will display the circle pitch measurement. And then multiple probes can be used together. Now we have fixed one probe here, and we can also fix one more probe here. Together we can use both of them together we can use for, so that measurement becomes very fast. I will just write a rough sketch. So we have some workpiece like this. So there is a projection in the workpiece. Now I want this distance to be measured. So this is the distance to be measured. Now what we can do, we can rotate this wheel so that this probe will make contact with this surface, and then again we rotate the wheel in the other direction so that the probe that is fixed here will make contact with this. So the difference in reading will give the distance between these two surfaces. So for such quick measurements we can use multiple probes. And then we can also attach extra long probes. Say we have some workpiece like this. Okay, this is the workpiece. Now, we need to measure the diameter of this inner hole, and also we need to measure the distance between this surface and this surface, that is depth of inner hole. Now, in this case we can always fix extra long probes, and then that probe will come here, it will make contact, and then we can move the probe inside the hole. So, that difference in reading gives the depth. Also that extra long probe can be used to measure the diameter of the inner hole. So, this is about extra long probes. So, the probes are available in the length of 100 millimeter, 200 millimeter, like that. Then data transfer facility is provided for statistical quality control purpose. All the data, measured data, can be supplied to a computer wherein the SQC softwares are available. So, it can be data can be used for processing. And another important feature of such a device is air cushion with built-in compressor. Now, the weight of this will be like 25 kg or 30 kg. So, it becomes heavy. A lot of effort is required to move this instrument over the surface plate. So, to make it easy for moving for sliding the instrument, air cushions are provided at the bottom of the base. So, and it is a built-in compressor, it has its own built-in compressor, and the external compressor is not necessary. So, because of this arrangement, we can easily slide the vernier height gauge on the surface plate. And another beautiful feature of this instrument is, whenever by mistake the operator tries to move the height gauge beyond the surface that is available on the surface plate, immediately there will be air locking, the instrument will be it gets clamped to the surface plate, so that it will not fall. And then we have built-in battery facility. Depending upon the usage, its life will be like 500 hours or 1000 hours, like that. And then we have swiveling display. So, this display can be swiveled, it can be swiveled like this, so that the reading becomes easy. And then measuring force adjustment facility is available in this. Depending upon the workpiece, whether it is soft material like rubber, plastic, or hard material like metal, we can adjust the measuring force. It can be force can be like 1 Newton or 2 Newton or 3 Newton, depending upon the workpiece we can adjust the measuring force. And another very important feature is go no go judgment is possible. So, any physical quantity, for example height, diameter, etc., will have some tolerance, and those tolerance values we can feed to the instrument, and then when we make the actual measurement, the microprocessor will check whether that measured quantity is within the tolerance or not. If the measured quantity is within the tolerance specified, then it will indicate that it is acceptable, workpiece is acceptable. If it is beyond the limits, then it will indicate that it should be rejected by displaying some red color. So, like this we can use this instrument for quick judgment, like limit gauging type of work. And then this can be used, working temperature range is from 0 to 40 degree Celsius. So, within that range we can use without making any external thermal compensation. And the to inch conversion is possible. This can be used for measurement of distances in metric system as well as in inch system. Now, there are some more features. Perpendicularity of this height gauge is 0.006 millimeter. That means range these instruments are available with the range of like 300 millimeter, 600 millimeter and 900 millimeter, and over the height, over the full range, the perpendicularity, that means this surface will be perpendicular to the vertical movement, and that error will be within 6 micrometer, and then the vertical movement that is straightness of this of such an instrument will be like 4 micrometer, and 60,000 data points can be stored in the memory of such instruments, and whenever required they can be retrieved and used. And the resolutions, switchable resolutions are possible, like 10 microns, 1 microns and 0.1 micrometer. That means depending upon the accuracy needed, we can always switch, we can select the appropriate resolution. Now, let us start the discussion on another very important instrument, that is micrometer. Now, let us study some points about the history of the micrometer. Now, you can see here this picture shows a micrometer designed and developed by James Watt in 1772. You can see that there are 2 dials are there and 2 pointers are there, and then we have that U-shaped body of the micrometer. Even now we are using a U-shaped body of the micrometer with little variations, and this is the anvil fixed to the body, and this is the movable spindle. So, we have to keep the workpiece here and we have to move this, and then by reading these 2 dials we can get the dimension of the workpiece. And then this micrometer is developed by Gene Palmer in 1848. That means approximately after 70 or 75 years, Gene Palmer improved the micrometer. Here you can see this is too huge. We have to fix this micrometer to maybe a table surface by using bolts, whereas here this is this can be handheld, very small instrument. Now, let us discuss about the anatomy of outside micrometer. Now, this is the frame of the micrometer made of steel, and now you can see here heat insulator is provided here, a plastic material is provided here. So, when the operator holds the micrometer, his body temperature will not flow, heat will not flow to the body of the micrometer, so that the thermal expansion of the body due to the body temperature of operator will be less. Now, we have a anvil fixed to the frame of the micrometer, and then we have a spindle which can be advanced or it can be retracted inside the sleeve. This is the sleeve wherein we have to insert the spindle, and the spindle has finely cut threads. Okay, they are ground threads. The pitch of this screw is normally 0.5 millimeter. Now, these 2 are the measuring faces. Measuring faces are very important. They are heat treated, ground and lapped, and then stabilization is required so that internal stresses are relieved so that they will not deform, and the faces are lapped, and the measuring face flatness and parallelism between these 2 surfaces is very important. Flatness and parallelism can be checked using optical flats, and normal flatness value will be 1 micron or less than that, and parallelism will be 1 micron or less than that, depending upon the accuracy of the micrometer. And now, we can see there is a clamp here, spindle lock, for locking the spindle at any desired location. And now this is the sleeve on which we have scale graduations. This is called sleeve scale or main scale, and then we have the thimble. So, this is the thimble portion. So, this side of the thimble, right side of the thimble, we can see that they are knurled for easy rotation of the thimble, and on the left end of the thimble we have again graduations. We will see about this graduation after some time. And then there is a nut here which is fixed to the inner sleeve. So, when we rotate the thimble, thimble is rigidly fixed to the screw. When we rotate the thimble, this screw will move in and out. That means, the spindle can be advanced towards the anvil or it can be retracted. Now, sometimes due to continuous usage there may be some clearance between the screw and the nut. So, we have to adjust the clearance. For that there is an adjustment nut. When we rotate the adjustment nut, the clearance between the main nut and the screw will be reduced, and hence slackness or backlash can be eliminated. And then we have a ratchet stop arrangement to apply uniform measuring force. We will see the construction of this ratchet a little later. Let me explain how to use the micrometer. This is the frame of the micrometer. You can see that ribbed shape, ribbings are there, so that it becomes rigid, and then here the range is mentioned 0 to 25 millimeter, and then the resolution of this instrument is 0.01 millimeter. We can see the carbide tipped anvil and carbide tipped spindle, the clamp for clamping the spindle, the thimble, sleeve and ratchet. Now, before using this micrometer, we have to clean the faces, anvil face and the spindle face with a clean cloth or smooth paper, so that dust particles and oily layer is removed, and then we have to unclamp the spindle, and then slowly we have to rotate the thimble like this, and then we have to operate the ratchet till we get 1 or 2 clicks. Now, we have to observe the reading. Now, we can see the reference line, and this is 0 on thimble. It is not coinciding with the 0 on the sleeve. That means, there is some 0 error. We have to eliminate this 0 error before using this instrument. For that, an arrangement is provided. When we rotate this micrometer, so this is the back side view, we can see back side of the sleeve there is a small hole. Now, a spanner is provided with the micrometer. Now, we have to use this spanner, and we have to operate the we have to rotate the sleeve in proper direction, so that the 0 error is eliminated. Now, we can see the 0 error is eliminated, and now this instrument is ready for using. Now, we can see the anvil surface, close view of the anvil surface. Sometimes now the carbide tipped anvil surfaces are also available, so that wear is less. Now, flatness of measuring surface as well as anvil surface is very important. They are ground and lapped, and flatness error will be below less than 1 micrometer, and the spindle surface and the anvil surface should be parallel. If there is any taper inclination, then the error will creep in. So, it is very essential that these two surface, anvil surface and spindle surface, should be parallel, and parallelism of less than 1 micron is maintained. The parallelism and the flatness can be checked using optical flats. So, this shows a close view of a spindle surface. So, it is very essential that we should maintain all these precision instruments whenever they are not in use for a longer time. We should apply petroleum jelly to all the important parts of the moving parts of the instrument. Now, you can see here, since the coating was not provided, there is a corrosion. Now, screw has been removed out of the sleeve. Now, we can observe the ground threads, very fine threads are there. The pitch of the metric micrometer will be normally 0.5 millimeter, and you can also clearly see the taper on the thimble surface, and we can also see the graduations very clearly. And this is the micrometer stand, and we can clamp it, and the inclination of this can be adjusted by rotating this knob. So, whenever required, we can use the micrometer stand. If the workpiece is very heavy, when we have to hold the workpiece with both the hands, then in that case micrometer stand will be very useful. Now, some inner details of the micrometer we can observe here. This is the adjusting nut, and then we have main nut. So, main nut has both internal and external thread. Inside also there are threads, and this will be mating with the main screw of the micrometer, and outside of the main nut also we have threads. So, when we rotate this adjusting nut, you can see here the slots are provided, and using the spanner we can rotate this we can rotate the adjusting nut. So, that and in the main nut we have slots are cut. So, when we rotate the adjusting nut, the main nut gets compressed and it embraces the main screw, and hence if there is any clearance, that is eliminated and backlash is eliminated. And then the ratchet mechanism disassembly, I told that ratchet is used to apply uniform measuring force when the measuring torque exceeds a certain value which is decided by the spring. We can see here there is a spring here. So, the spring tension decides what is the amount of force that is applied onto the workpiece. Normally it will be like 5 newtons, 6 newtons, 7 newtons, and since we apply uniform pressure, this ratchet mechanism is used. When the torque exceeds the set limit which is decided by the spring. Now, you can see here these two parts, one acts as ratchet and another acts as pawl. So, when the torque exceeds, this pawl will slip, and hence the further movement of the spindle will stop. So, this is how the uniform pressure is applied on the workpiece. Now, let us study how we can use the micrometer to measure the thickness of this plate. Now, I am keeping the plate on the datum surface, and then I am moving the micrometer towards the workpiece, and then slowly we have to operate the thimble. Now, the spindle is advancing and it is moving towards the workpiece. It is moving towards the workpiece. Now, it has just touched the workpiece. I am giving I am using the ratchet to apply uniform pressure, and then I am clamping the spindle. Now, slowly we have to remove the workpiece. Now, we have to take the reading. Now, main scale or sleeve scale reading is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, 4 millimeter, and then on the thimble we have 0, 1 second. Second graduation is coinciding. That means second graduation means 2 into 0.01, that is 0.02. So, the thickness of this plate is 4.02 millimeter. Now, let me show how we can measure the outside diameter of workpiece. I am showing the measurement of OD of this portion. So, now the workpiece is between anvil and spindle. Now, slowly we have to rotate the thimble in the reverse direction. So, spindle is moving towards the workpiece. Now, it has just touched the workpiece. Now, let me operate the ratchet, and then we have to clamp the spindle. Now, slowly we have to remove the workpiece. Now, we have to read the scale. So, this is the main scale. So, 0, 5 millimeter, 10 millimeter, 11, 12, 13, and then 13.5, and then thimble reading 45, 46. So, this reference line is between 46 and 47. We will take 46. 46 into resolution, that is 0.01. So, the thimble reading is 0.46. So, this 0.46 we have to add to main scale reading, that is 13.5. 13.5 plus 0.46, that means 13.96. 13.96 is the diameter of the workpiece. Now, let us see the variants of the micrometer. There are various kinds of micrometers available in the market. Now, let us study this inside micrometer and disc type micrometer, and the large micrometers and dial type micrometer. Now, this shows front view of inside micrometer. Now, you can see this is the sleeve. On sleeve we have the main scale, and then this is the thimble, and this is the ratchet, and now this jaw is fixed to the sleeve, and when the spindle move, when we rotate the thimble, spindle moves in and out depending upon the direction of the thimble. So, to the spindle a moving caliper or moving jaw is fixed. So, in this case this part of the jaw, this jaw will move, and this is fixed to the sleeve. And now, we can see the range of this instrument. It is 5 millimeter to 30 millimeter, that is the range, and then we can see the markings on the sleeve. So, it is in the reverse direction. So, this is 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 like that. So, between two graduations here the spindle movement will, this represents 1 millimeter, and below this we have markings. So, this will give 0.5 millimeter readings. So, various ranges are available like 175 to 200 millimeter with 0.01 millimeter resolutions are available. So, here again thimble graduations are visible. Now, this is a back view of inside micrometric. This is used for measuring the inside dimensions like the distance between groove or inside the hole diameter. For such things we can use this. Now, what we can see in this photograph, there is a guide rod, okay, and this is the guide. So, when we move the thimble, this movable jaw will move, and this is guided by this guide rod and the guides. Now, the resolution of this instrument is 0.01 millimeter. Now, we can observe one thing here, the jaws of this instrument, they are contoured or radiused. So, this is necessary when we want to measure the inside hole diameter. So, if we have flat surfaces, then the measurement will not be correct. We can see the example here. I will write some sketches. So, this is the inside. So, this is the hole. If we have a flat jaw, then the contact will be like this. Contact will, then this much error will occur in the measurement. So, because of this radius jaw, the contact will be like this, and then there will not be any error. So, this is the reason why the radius is provided on the jaws. Now, another variant is disc type micrometer. This is used for measurement of spur gears and helical gears. This the details of this we will see in the appropriate module when we discuss about the gear measurement. And let us learn something about a large micrometer. Now, in the market the very large micrometers are available with the range 25 to 2000 millimeter. Now, one thing we can observe, the measuring head range remains same 0 to 25 millimeter, and then we use setting masters to set the distance. For example, in this case the we have a setting master of say 25 millimeter length. Now, we have to place the setting master between anvil and jaw, and then we have to rotate the thimble, so that the spindle will just touch this surface, and then the setting will be 25 millimeter, because we are using 25 millimeter setting master. And then if the workpiece is greater than 25 millimeter, then we can use this instrument. That means, the range of this instrument becomes 25 to 50 millimeter with this 25 millimeter setting master. Now, we have to place the workpiece here, and then we have to rotate the thimble, and then we have to take the reading, and to this reading we have to add the size of the setting master, then we get the workpiece size. And you can observe insulating gripper is provided here. So, we have to hold the micrometer at this grip insulator, heat insulator, so that body temperature will not transfer to the body. When we hold the micrometer for a longer time, like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and if heat insulator is not provided, the body temperature will heat will get transferred to the body, and then it expands, and then the measurement error will occur. Now, various sizes of setting masters are available in the range of 25 to 2000 millimeter size in steps of 25 millimeter. So, we can, depending upon the workpiece size, we have to select the appropriate setting master, and we have to set the micrometer, and then we have to use. Again, these setting masters, the flatness of surface of the setting master surface is 0.3 micrometer or less than that. They are ground and lapped, so that the flatness, very good flatness is achieved. Also, the parallelism between this working surface and this working surface is very important, and it is maintained like 2 micrometer or less than 2 micrometer parallelism is maintained, so that we get a good accurate measurement. Now, this is another variant of the micrometer, wherein we have the body and then spindle, anvil, clamp, etc. This portion is common to our common micrometer, and we have the moving anvil. See, the important feature of this micrometer is anvil also moves in and out, and there is a slider to move the anvil in and out, and at the other end a dial is fixed. So, the movement of anvil also can be fixed by using this clamp, and then movement of spindle also can be it can be clamped using this clamp. Now, what is the advantage of using this dial? See, dial can be used to maintain uniform pressure. In the absence of ratchet, the dials are provided, so that when we rotate the thimble, now we have the workpiece here. When we rotate the thimble, spindle moves, and then the force is applied to the dial indicator, and then the pointer moves. So, by noting down the amount of rotation of the pointer, we can maintain uniform pressure on the workpiece. That is one thing. Other thing is, dial can be used for go and no go judgment. That means, sometimes the actual size of the workpiece is not required. What is required is whether the workpiece is acceptable or not, whether it is within the range. So, in such cases we can insert the workpiece here, and then we can move the anvil inside by operating the anvil, operating the slider, and then we can keep the workpiece here, and then we can release the slider, so that anvil moves towards the workpiece, and then we have to note down what is the reading. If the reading is within the limits, the workpiece is accepted. If it is beyond, the workpiece is rejected. Let me conclude this session. In this session, we discussed about the height gauge, different types of height gauges, and the construction of height gauges, and what are the various uses of height gauges. And we also discussed about the micrometer, the history of the micrometer, the construction of the micrometer, what are the various types of micrometers. In the next session, we will continue the discussion on other types of micrometers. Thank you.